Okay, ladies and gents, it is October 1st, 2025. I'm a day late and a dollar short. Usually I like to get these out a couple of days before the month starts, but life happens. Lots happening always. Not always. Right now. Yeah. So this is the astrology transits for October. And we're going to start with what planets are still in retrograde. There's quite a few. Um, Makes for interesting times, of course. So let's start with the big one, Pluto. Pluto's been in retrograde since May 4th. Started at 3 degrees 49 minutes of Aquarius. It's going back to 1 degree 22 minutes. And it's going to hit that. Well, it's already basically at 1 degree, but October 13th is when it's going to stop retrograding, station, and go direct again. So basically, we've been in the review of those first 3 degrees of Aquarius, 3.5 degrees of Aquarius, um, as Pluto kind of unearths the dark aspects of society, our roles in society, power structure issues, power dynamics, and it's our opportunity to transform, to go into the underworld, to face the darkness, bring it into the light, and create what is potentially a more utopian society. You know, the Age of Aquarius, the song. Um, so I just wanted to remark on my halo behind me. Um, I'm staying in the light, man. Um, anyways, I'm doing this at night because it's October, right? Like, of course, you know, we gotta play with Halloween. But next, getting back to the point, Neptune in retrograde started July 4th at 2 degrees of Aquarius, or sorry, 2 degrees of Aries. It's going back to 29 degrees of Pisces. So again, like 3 degrees of a retrograde starting July 4th, and it'll hit 29 degrees, 22 minutes of Pisces by December 10th. So this is like the Pluto. We're getting a review of the first 2 degrees of Neptune and Aries, and like a little slip back into the one last degree of Pisces, the sign that rules Neptune. Um, and so this is an opportunity. This has been an opportunity for us to feel into what does Neptune in Aries feel like, or what does it mean? Just the first 2 degrees. And like I said, it started going backwards on July 4th. So it's been a while now that we've been in retrograde. And it'll go forward again on December 10th. Um, so, the spiritual warrior, what does it mean to be a spiritual warrior? And also, like, what does it mean to have the delusions of masculine and the warrior? What are our spiritual issues with those roles? And they're kind of, morphing and slipping out of awareness and just being elusive. Kind of rings true, doesn't it? Um, Next, Saturn retrograde. So it only got up to 1 degree and 56 minutes of Aries, not even 2 degrees. And that was July 12th that it stationed retrograde then, and is going back to 25 degrees of Pisces by November 27th. So we still have another 2 months of retrograde Saturn. And that's, rather than putting form and structure externally in the outside world, it's more of a, what does that mean for us? What is our discipline? What is our work ethic? Um, it's also a review of, like, Saturn in Aries is, what are the structures of the masculine? I mean, it's so ironic, this speech that Hegseth and Trump gave to the military top brass. This is Neptune and Saturn in Aries. And just the first couple of degrees of Aries, it's what is the meaning of the warrior? What are the structures of the masculine hierarchy, masculine leadership? But then when Saturn goes back into Pisces, it's another last ditch effort to materialize or put structure to the spiritual realm, before leaving for good and spending the next 2.5 years basically in Aries. So it goes back to 25 degrees by November 27th, and then it'll cross over back into Aries. Hello, my light flickered off. There we are. It went back into Pisces. It's going to go all the way to 25 degrees, and then it'll come back to Aries by February 13th of 2026, and it'll stay in Aries until April 12th of 2028. So almost 2.5 years, and then it'll kind of, dance with Taurus for a bit. Mercury retrograde ended last month, August 11th. Sorry, this month. No, last month. It is October 1st. I'm not quite there yet. And it was in Leo. So we're done with Mercury retrograde for now, for a bit. That's nice. We can actually communicate clearly. So forgive my accent. It just kind of comes out once in a while. Little piece of self-awareness on like multiple levels. Anyways, I'll quit talking about myself and just talk about the astrology. So next is Chiron. It's been retrograde since July 30th. It's stationed retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries. It's going back by January 2nd of 2026. It'll go back to 22 degrees of Aries, and then it'll start going forward again. So we've been doing a review of 22 to 27 degrees of Aries with Chiron, and it'll bounce into Taurus in June 19th of 2026, until September 17th, and then it'll go back into Aries from September 18th, 2026 until April 14th of 2027. And then it'll finally be done with trying to heal the wounded masculine. And then this will be the last review before entering Taurus in July 18th. And then entering in Taurus April 14th of 2027 and staying there until July of 2033. Chiron and Taurus. Well, we're still in Aries. Uranus in retrograde started September 6th at 1 degree, 27 minutes of Gemini. It's going to go back to 27 of Taurus by February 4th of 2026, and then it'll go forward again. So we're in that first review, and then the third phase will be February 4th. So yeah, we're basically getting a taste of what Uranus and Gemini was, what it's going to feel like, and then it'll be there for about 7 years. So it's also like an upgrade of our mental capacity. Uranus is the kind of the higher mind. Gemini is the human mind, human intellect. So we're getting like an up leveling or an upgrade of our mental capacities. And then lastly, Jupiter retrograde. Not yet. It's coming November 11th, and it'll be in retrograde until March 11th of 2026. It's going to go retrograde at 25 degrees of Cancer, back to 15, and then on March 11th, it'll go forward again. So we've already been experiencing Jupiter in retrograde for quite a while. We've gotten all the way up to 25. By November, we'll be all the way up to 25 degrees of Cancer. Sorry, Jupiter in Cancer is what I meant to say. I thought maybe I said Gemini, but maybe not. So that's all the retrograde business. Lots of fun. Y'all noticed my long hair? I think last video I had a ponytail, maybe. But I'm usually wearing it in a ponytail these days because this is just too much to work with. Side note. Anyways, next section. Major configurations. There's a lot. Like, it's one thing to realize, notice, reflect, interpret, experience the major configurations. Most people don't think about these. A lot of astrologers don't. It's fairly new for my astrological capacity to focus on them and experience them and reflect on them as much as I do now. Yeah, I've been aware of grand trines and grand squares for quite a while, but bringing in cradles and wedges and T-squares and kites and all these other things is just a whole nother level of experiencing astrology. Excuse me. If you see my other videos, you know by now that I have to drink a lot of water. I'm not much of a talker, so my body's like, you need to hydrate in order to convey verbal messaging. Major configurations. We got 3 grand trines coming up in October. First one starting on the 14th. It's Venus trine Uranus trine Pluto. So this Uranus trine Pluto has been going on for quite a while now, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But then Venus is going to jump in the mix and hit both of those. So Uranus and Pluto, although it's a trine, they're working together, and Venus is going to work together with them. So grand trine is all 3 of these planets working harmoniously together. But Uranus is, electric, erratic, cosmological shifts and changes, and Pluto is like deep underworld transformation, working with Venus. So our feminine is going to experience some kind of revolutionary transformation around the middle of October. Hopefully it's a good thing. Venus will be in Libra, and hopefully we'll have a cathartic, revolutionary, transformational identity of the feminine. Next grand trine is Mercury. Mercury has Mars and Lilith right with it, so they're involved as well. And it's a trine with Mercury, Mars, and Lilith together, and then Jupiter and Saturn are the other 2 planets. So Jupiter and Saturn are both social planets, so this will have some social awareness around it. And Mercury is, of course, the mind, thinking, communication. So we're going to have some major clarity into, also Mercury is going to be in Scorpio. Mercury, Mars, and Lilith are all together in Scorpio right now, and pretty much throughout October. And so the mind, which is focused on the masculine and also the repressed feminine, and I'll talk more about Lilith in a minute, but working together with the 2 social planets, like social expansion in terms of our emotionality, because Jupiter's in Cancer, and then the contraction or the structure around the masculine warrior Aries. And that'll basically be between the 22nd and the 25th of October. The third trine is then Mercury moving away from Mars and Lilith, so kind of leaving those two less involved. And it's still a grand trine with Jupiter and Saturn, but then Neptune's going to be involved. So Neptune and Saturn are working together. The previous grand trine, Mercury's only at 22 degrees, so it doesn't bring in Neptune, even though Neptune and Saturn are together. But the one following that is basically Mercury moving slightly to still be connected to Jupiter, but then now Saturn and Neptune together. So our minds will be thinking about the social dynamic, both the expansion and contraction, but then also this element of Neptune and Aries. This is the disillusionment of the masculine warrior. It can also be thought of as the spiritual aspects to what it means to be a masculine warrior. And that'll be from the 25th to the 29th. Then we also have this minor grand trine. This has been going on for a while now. I talked about it in the August video, the September video, but it's still active. Pluto, so it's, Uranus trine Pluto. Oof, too many things in my head. Uranus trine Pluto, 120 degrees apart, and then both of them sextile Saturn and Neptune, which are together. So this big triangle, or this mini triangle. And like I said, they've been active pretty strongly from August to September. It's still in play. And right now it's at like 1 degree of Aquarius. Pluto's at 1 degree of Aquarius. Uranus is at 1 degree of Gemini. Saturn's at 0 degrees of Aries, and Neptune's at 1 degree of Aries. So it's the first degrees of these signs where you have this harmonious interaction between Pluto and Uranus, like I just talked about in that grand trine. You have the shift maker Uranus, the radical cosmological changes and shifts, and then you have Pluto, the underworld, deep transformational experience, working together also with Saturn and Neptune, this in Aries. So societal structure and spiritual dynamic with regard to Aries, the masculine warrior. So that's happening right now. It's also going to happen again from July 7th through the 31st of 2026. But then it'll be at 4 degrees of those three signs: Aries, Aquarius, and Gemini. Excuse me. And then again on June 5th through 17th of 2027, it'll happen at the 6th degree of those three signs. So these are really opportunities of reflection in your own chart to see what these major configurations are hitting in your own birth chart. And if you have questions about that, you can email me or text me. And also, my website is astrocosmology.com. It's linked to my massage website because I also do AstroCosmology massage. And it's nice to just have it all there in one place. But yeah, you can always reach out to me if you want a reading and want to understand how this is hitting your chart specifically. So you can do a current transit reading. Also, if you've never had your birth chart done, we can do your birth chart. We can always do time-specific readings, subject-specific readings like relationships, careers, all that kind of stuff. And I also do astro cartography, which is laying your birth chart over a map of the world to see what energies you experience in different places. So that's my plug, right in the middle there. So another major configuration is a cradle. And I think I talked about this last video. A cradle is like 4 planets sextiling each other. So a positive interaction, positive interaction, positive interaction, positive interaction. But then the last two are opposite each other. So those two are not working together and they're polarized. So you have Mercury in 29 degrees of Scorpio. Then you have You have Pluto and the Moon at 1 degree of Aquarius. Then you have Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces and Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini. And this will be happening basically from the 28th to the 29th, my birthday, of October. So basically, you have Mercury opposite Uranus, um, and Mercury's at 29 degrees, but it's kind of assuming that it's turning into Sagittarius, and Uranus is at 0 degrees of Gemini. But it's unique to incorporate what it means to have Mercury transitioning from Scorpio to Gemini. And a wedge is like Mercury's working with Pluto and the Moon. So, the transformation of our emotional self in Aquarius, how does the child fit into society? How does our inner child fit into the roles that we take in society? And then sextiling Neptune and Pisces, which is its own sign. So the spiritual aspect, the disillusionment of mysticism, and then that's working with Gemini at 0 degrees of, sorry, working with Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini, which is like the higher mind, the higher intellect, insight. And that Uranus in Gemini, which is Mercury sign, is opposite Mercury. So you have a opposition of a mutual reflection. So our singular mind, our mental state, is going to feel polarized with this kind of up-leveling, upgrading of the universal mind that we're all experiencing. And it might feel pretty uncomfortable. Like I said, 28th, 29th of October. Then we have two wedges. Excuse all my ums. It's just a lot of information to process. So a wedge is two planets opposite with a third planet that's sextile and trine those opposite planets. And it's kind of like that third planet is the release valve of the opposition. So the first one on October 17th is the nodes of the moon. So north node, south node, which represent like our trajectory of evolution. South node is where we came from, north node is where we're going to. And then Mercury and Mars together in Scorpio are trining and sextiling the nodes. So the north node is in Pisces and the south node is in Virgo. South node has the moon with it. So in this trajectory of our evolution, moving from the past and the child, the moon, innocence, purity, emotionality, evolving towards Pisces, North Node in Pisces, which is like a more spiritual experience and understanding. And this evolution, trajectory of evolution, is asking us to think about Mercury and Mars in Scorpio. So the mental aspects of the deep, insightful mental understanding around power dynamics and the masculine. October 17th is when that's happening. The wedge. There's another wedge. There's a lot going on. Mercury opposite Uranus, October 27th through November 1st. And so we have Mercury in 0 degrees of Gemini, Mercury at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, and Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini, and then Neptune over here in Pisces. So there's this polarization between Mercury and Uranus, which is like the simple mind, our individual intellect and thinking ability, capacity, and the universal mind, or the internet, the grand electrification of mental activity across the whole planet, across the universe. And the escape, or the opportunity to get out of this polarization, this opposition, is to think about Neptune and Pisces, what it means to be spiritual, what it means to be mystical, and also like how is escapism relevant to this whole mental polarization. Next are the kites. We have 3 kites. I love kites. It really looks like a kite. So you have an opposition, then you have, and this is included in a kite, you have the grand trine, and then the 2 points of the grand trine are sextile that 3rd point. So you have like a little angle and then big angles down the bottom. So it looks like a kite formation. The first one is basically October 11th through the 14th. And we have Venus in Virgo, 26 degrees, opposite Saturn and Neptune. Saturn's at 26 degrees, Neptune's at 0, so it's slightly involved, not strongly involved. And then Venus is trine Uranus and Pluto. So it's the grand trine of Venus, Uranus, and Pluto, with Saturn and Neptune making the opposition to Venus. So this is, we've talked a lot about this grand trine with the mini grand trine, the mini trine of Saturn and Neptune with Uranus and Pluto. But now Venus is jumping into the mix. So there's a lot going on around the feminine. The masculine too. Mars has some pretty interesting experiences as well this month. But I would say the feminine is getting the majority of the experience in October. And a kite is like a grand trine and a mini trine. All those planets are working together, but then it's incorporating this opposition. And in this one in particular, it's Venus opposite Saturn and Neptune in Aries and Pisces. So Venus in Virgo, it's like the feminine purity, innocence, physical health is affected by all this deep transformation that's happening in society, and the up-leveling of our minds, and this structural delusion of the masculine warrior. Another kite happens on, as soon as we get out of that one, another one happens totally different, but not. So it's Pluto opposite the moon and incorporating Venus and Uranus. So the grand trine of Venus, Uranus, and Pluto, then Pluto is opposite the moon. So, the deep transformation that we're going through, 1 degree of Aquarius, of society, of the new concept of how we want to run society, is really hard for the child in Leo to feel safe and feel comfortable. And yeah, I mean, it's not till the 14th, but sounds kind of real right now. The third kite is Lilith and Mars together. Lilith, Mars, and Mercury together, opposite Uranus. So we have this crazy Pluto-Uranus trine, and then it's hitting other points. So Lilith in Scorpio, Lilith, Mars, and Mercury all in Scorpio coming around and opposing Uranus in Gemini, and then trine Jupiter and trine Saturn with Neptune with it. These are hard, it's 4 dynamics in a configuration where you have all the outside planets like working together, but then the 2 long points in opposition. So Lilith, Mars, and Mercury, communication around the deep dark aspects of the male and the dark aspects about repressing the female are in opposition to Uranus, this kind of quixotic upgrade of the mind that we're all experiencing. And Jupiter and Saturn with Neptune down here working to support this opposition. So the 2 social planets. So it'll be kind of a public experience. And the last of the major configurations is a T-square. Another one that I've been using for a while, but definitely not in the beginning of my astrological career. So a T-square is 2 planets opposite squaring a third. So it's a triangle, but it's 2 squares in opposition. And it's the Sun opposite Chiron, both squaring Jupiter. So the Sun will be in Libra. Our minds, our awareness, our attention will be focused on relationships, trying to balance relationships, trying to experience the beauty in relationships, while also feeling pulled or polarized with Chiron and Aries, the wounded masculine, trying to heal the wounded masculine. And then both of those will be squaring Jupiter and Cancer. So that opposition that we're trying to deal with around our awareness and relationships and the wounded masculine is really not fun socially, and it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel emotionally comfortable. I could see us all just hiding under a rock, and that's October 17th. So yeah, Sun and Chiron both squaring Jupiter in Cancer. The current monthly transits. So today we had Moon conjunct Pluto. What? Yes, this minor triangle with Pluto trine Uranus and sextile Saturn and Neptune. The Moon decided to jump in with Pluto. So I basically describe this as the child within, and or all children are feeling the effects, whether that be the affect or the effect of this like radical society shift. And the the mini triangle of Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune has been described by other astrologers as so it's a cycle that repeats, of course. It's going to it doesn't actually hit exact in 2025, but we definitely are experiencing it. It's going to be exact 3 times coming up: July 18th of 2026, November 29th of 2026, June 15th of 2027, January 13th of 2028, and May 9th of 2028. So we got years of this. And wouldn't you know it, during the last series, or the Uranus-Pluto trines in 1921 and 22, Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, and Joseph Stalin came to power. Wow, great. And the Chinese Communist Party, Spanish Communist Party, and the National Fascist Party in Italy were founded. The Soviet Union was officially established. The Irish War of Independence ended in a truce. Revolutions in Greece, Turkey, and elsewhere, discovery of the hormone insulin, and first public radio broadcasts. Can we not slip into fascism, USA? Really? Are you freaking kidding me? Anyways, so the moon's gonna jump in there with this minor triangle. That happened today, sorry. Anybody feeling uncomfortable today? I was like, did not want to get out of bed, did not want to face anything, feel like the struggle is real and it is massive and freaking tired of it. Anyways, also on October 1st at 12:55 a.m., so early this morning, Juno entered Sagittarius, and it was there from February 19th until April 15th, and then now October 1st until December 29th. And this is a shift around our collective understanding of committed relationships. It's been focused on like revealing the dark secrets and the power plays, and now it's going to be focused on the journey of experience, travel, adventure, evolution, growth. It's time for aspirational quests of seeking how our belief systems influence relationships. So, October 3rd, let me just pause and say, I was hoping this video would be shorter than previous videos, and I'm looking at the timestamp and it's like 37 minutes already. And there's quite a few current transits to go through. So I'm wondering if maybe I stop this video and do another one that's shorter on the current transits. And I think I will. Ciao. See y'all sooner than later. Love you. Bye.